Good evening, and I'm so glad to be here again. Sorry I was late this evening. We're looking at the 7 I Ams of Jesus. And last week we looked at I am the bread of life. Today we're looking at I am the light of the world. The word light today means so much more than it meant back in the day when Jesus said the words, I am the light. Because back in the day there was just lamps. Right now you look around us, there are amazing lights all over the place, thanks to the invention of the light bulb and all kinds of bulbs since then. We're looking at John chapter 8 and briefly at John chapter 9, where Jesus mentions these very famous words, I am the light of the world. In John 8, 1-11, it begins by saying, early in the morning, he came again into the temple, and all the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. Then the scribes and Pharisees brought to him a woman caught in adultery. And we know this story. We've been through it so many times. But if you look at this particular story, this happened in the temple, this happened in the morning, and the people who bring the woman who was caught in adultery are the scribes and the Pharisees, the religious leaders. So Jesus is sitting there and talking to people, and then in walks this crowd of people, and they don't bring this woman there because they want to know what to do. Actually, the verse says here that they wanted to test him, that they might have something of which to accuse him. I mean, the reason the Pharisees and scribes always followed Jesus was not to learn. We looked at that last week, how when a person doesn't want to learn, he makes it more hard to learn. When a person wants to learn, he makes it easier for them to learn. And you're going to see the same thing happening here as well. So the reason they bring this woman here is because they want her to be stoned. And they say the Bible says she should be stoned. Moses said rather, she should be stoned. What do you say? Now if you actually look at what Moses said, or at least what the law says, it doesn't say she should be stoned. It says if people were committing adultery, both had to be stoned. Leviticus 20:10 and Deuteronomy 22:22 says that. But they say, Moses says, she should be stoned. What do you say? And Jesus, being the judge of the universe, could easily have said what he wanted to say. But he just sat down and began writing on the ground with his finger, acting as if he didn't hear. It looked like, he's just casual. He's not listening to them, but he was. And when he did that, they continued to ask him, what should we do? Come on, tell us. Should we or should we not stone this woman? It says, after that he raised himself up again, and he said these beautiful words, let he who is without sin throw the first stone. He didn't say don't stone her. He said, let the sinless one be the first one to stone her. And we know what happened. One by one. Not all at one time, not in twos, not in a group. One by one, beginning with the eldest, they began to walk away. Now, there's always been this question, what could he have been writing on the ground? Nobody knows that, right? But something about what he wrote, or maybe how he wrote, did something to them that one by one, from the eldest to the youngest, they began to walk away. I guess the eldest had a lot more sins that came to their minds, and they realized, I dare not pick up a stone and stone her, so they began to walk away. This is just an imagination, so please, it's not in the Bible, but it says that he wrote with his finger on the ground. If you look back at how the law of Moses came, it was written with the finger of God on the stone tablets. I want us to imagine for a moment that the question is not what he wrote, but perhaps how he wrote. What if he wasn't writing in the sand? It doesn't say on the sand. It doesn't say in the dust. It says he was writing on the ground. What if he was using his finger and writing on the ground? And they saw this and thought, this sounds a lot like how we got the law we are quoting. With the finger of God, here is the God of the universe speaking to them, and perhaps, what if he was using his finger and writing something on stone and shocking them all? Whatever it was, maybe it was on sand, maybe it was on dust, but he wrote something, and something happened in their hearts that one by one they began to walk away. And then Jesus stands up and says to the lady, "Where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you?" Now watch what she says. She doesn't say Rabbi. She says no one, but doesn't say Rabbi or teacher or master. She says no one, Lord. Here are leaders who are refusing to accept him as Lord, but here's a quote-unquote sinful woman, according to them, who's understood that this man is Lord. We don't know what happened. Something has happened that this woman referred to him as Lord. Now, you can imagine her thoughts, her emotions as she's there. I wonder now what he's going to say, because he is the only one who had the right to condemn her. He is the only one who had the right to stone her. What's he going to say? And he says, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." I can't imagine what feelings she went through at that point of time. What thoughts went through her mind to think suddenly this weight, she's there expecting to be stoned, she's there thinking this is my last day, and suddenly this judge of the universe is saying to her, "I don't condemn you," but he goes on to say, "Go and sin no more." You know, those are very easy words to say, right? We can tell our kids, we can tell people, we can tell ourselves, we can tell friends, stop sinning. But that's more easily said than done. Now, we don't know whether the lady walked away or continued there, but Jesus continued speaking to the people he was speaking to when the Pharisees and scribes came, or the scribes and Pharisees came. And he says here in John 8:12, "Then he spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world." He's using the word "I am" here. And he says, "I am the light." Keep this word light in mind. When he's referring to light, usually it's talking about holiness, godliness, righteousness, everything good. And darkness refers to sin, wickedness, evil, and everything bad. We're living in a world today that is dark. It's getting darker by the day. The kind of things that are happening, maybe we're getting brighter physically, but spiritually we are getting darker by the day. And he says, "I am the light of the world." He's saying, "I am the light of the world." He goes on to say, "He who follows me shall not walk in darkness." Basically he's saying, in this dark, sinful world, I am righteousness. I am holy. I am good. I am everything that is good is who I am, because God is good. God is holy. But he's using the word "I am." Keep that in mind. I am is usually referred to Jesus, to God. And nobody dared use those words so carelessly. But he says, "I am the light of the world." He who follows me, we looked at this last time. Follow means to believe and to obey, right? Following somebody is to say, I believe in you and I'm going to follow your instructions, your teachings. He who follows me will not walk in darkness. Keep this in mind. If he's light and you're following light, you can't have darkness. If you're walking away from light, then you're walking into darkness. If you're following light, you're going to be in the light. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but will have, what's that word? Will have means, not only will you be following light, but you will have the light of life in you itself, which means my righteousness is what he came to give us, right? You will have my righteousness, you will have my holiness, and you will have a life that is going to end with eternity. Or rather, a life that's not going to end, a life that's going to result in eternity. And we looked at even that last week, the bread of life, the light of life. And they say, but you're bearing witness of yourself, and that's not right. So they are saying to Jesus, you're bearing witness of yourself. Your witness is not true. He goes on to say, my witness is true, because I know where I came from, and I know where I am going, but you have no idea where I've come from, where I'm going. And this whole discussion begins about God, the Father, and His purpose for coming. He says, when I'm lifted up, meaning when I'm crucified, right? Reactions of attitudes. There's loads of things the Bible talks about what sin is. Basically, it's missing the mark, not living according to God's expectations. And he says we can get enslaved by sin, almost like a virus entering a system and messing it up. That's what happened in the Garden of Eden. We got corrupted by sin. And humans have been enslaved by sin. And he says, you need to be set free from that slavery. They are talking about physical slavery. He's talking about spiritual slavery. And a slave does not abide in the house forever, but a son does. Now he uses another analogy of slave. Back in the day when there was slavery in place, in a home you would have sons and daughters, you would also have slaves. But slaves remain slaves only for a certain period of time. He says a slave doesn't abide in the house forever, but a son does. So it means a slave cannot free another slave, but a son can. Which means if the son sets you free, you will be free indeed. And where's he heading now? He's talking about himself being the Son of God. He says, if I set you free, that's what he's meaning here. If I set you free from sin, you will have real freedom. Very often people can pretend they have freedom from sin by living certain restrictive lifestyles, beating their bodies, doing all sorts of things to bring their body into subjection. But unless Christ sets us free, there can be no true freedom. And that's what he's saying here. If the Son sets you free, you will have real freedom. He goes on to say, I know you're Abraham's descendants, but you want to kill me. Because my word has no place in you. They just wanted to stone him, right, earlier? He says, you're supposed to be his descendants. You want to kill me. I speak what I've seen with my father, and you do what you've seen with your father. Suddenly, this whole concept of father is now taking a different discussion, a different route. He says, they answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. First they talked about Moses, now they've talked about Abraham, now they're saying Abraham is their father. And Jesus says, if you were Abraham's father, if Abraham was your father, you would do his works. You remember last time we talked about the bread of life, and they said, what works should we do that we should do the works of God? What should we do that we will do the works that God requires, in other words? And here he says, you would do the works of Abraham. What did Abraham do to be made righteous? He believed. He believed and he was made righteous, right? So that's the belief you should have, he says. If he's your dad, he believed, you should believe, but you don't believe me. But you want to kill me. I've spoken the truth that I have heard from God. Abraham didn't do this. You're doing the deeds of your father. Now watch this. He's bringing to their mind the fact that Abraham's not their father, but they have another father. They say, we were not born of fornication. We have one father. And now what are they saying? God is our father. First they spoke about Moses, then they spoke about Abraham. Now they've gone further back and saying, our father is not just Abraham, our father is God. What do you mean by, we have another father? He says, if God were your father, you would love me, because I'm his son. We looked at that last week, right? Those who knew God, those who sought God, he pointed them to Jesus. He says, if you really knew God, you would love me. What's he making a point here? You don't even know God. You're claiming to know him, because if you did, you would love me. For I proceeded from God, I came from God, I didn't come on myself, he sent me. Why don't you understand what I'm saying? You can't, because you're not able to listen to my word. You can't understand because you're not listening. So these people's ears were blocked, their eyes were blinded, their minds were dulled, their hearts were hard. He says that's why you can't understand, because you're not listening. He goes on to explain what he means by your father. You are of your father the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. What's the desire of the devil? He goes on to say he was a murderer from the beginning. Who's he talking to? The Jewish leaders, supposedly the religious bosses of the day. He says he never stood in the truth, because there's no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own resources, for he's a liar and the father of it. Another version says he speaks his mother tongue. Means the devil is a liar. Everything he speaks is lies. But I speak the truth and you don't believe me. Which of you can convict me of sin? Comes back to the point of sin. Here's the sinless person, means full of light, no darkness. Sinful people convicting or condemning a sinless person. Which of you can convict me of sin? And if I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? He says, he who is of God hears God's words. Therefore you do not hear, because you are not of God. You would imagine sometimes that this sort of a message will go to people outside the church, or maybe to new believers, or to people who are backslidden. He's talking here to spiritual leaders and saying to them, you don't even know God. You're not even seeking God, and that's why you're rejecting me. Then they accuse him. They say, you're a Samaritan. You've got a demon. He says, no, I don't have a demon. You are dishonoring me. I didn't come here to seek my own honor. There's one who seeks and judges. He says, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never see death. You see what Jesus does over and over again? He will confuse people who don't want to learn. He will speak from an angle that they can't understand, but at the same time, we'll find those who do understand. He says, if you keep my words, means if you obey me, you'll never die. Imagine if I said that to one of you, or you said that to me today. I'm never going to die. What are we thinking? Physical. They are thinking physical. And all their arguments going forward will be from that particular perspective. They say to him, now we know you have a demon. Abraham is dead, the prophets, and you say, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham? They just say Abraham is dead. When God appeared to Moses in the burning bush, he says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When he answered the question to the Sadducees once, he says, I am the God. God is the God of the living and not of the dead. So they should realize Abraham is not dead, he's alive. Physically dead, spiritually our soul lives on. But these didn't understand that. They're asking him, are you greater than our father Abraham? We know the answer is absolutely yes. Who is dead? And he goes on. They're asking him, who do you make yourself out to be? And he says, if I honor myself, it's nothing. My Father honors me. And you say that my Father is your God. Yet, you don't know him, but I know him. If I say I don't know him, I'll be a liar like you, but I do know him and keep his word. And he makes it more and more difficult now by what he's going to say. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. Just imagine this. He says, Abraham, who died thousands of years ago, saw my day today and he was glad. Now keep in mind, they're still thinking that perspective. They're not thinking through the eyes of faith, where they knew that Christ is going to come and be the fulfillment of the righteousness of God, which Abraham believed and received. And the Jews said to him, you are not even 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham? He said to them, most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. That was it. They couldn't take any more. He has now said he is equal to God by using the words, I am. And that's when they took up stones to throw at him. But he went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed away. You see what Jesus always did? He made things clear to the simple who wanted to learn, and made things tough for those people. But he never minced words when he was teaching them and telling them, you people are not saved. You're not going to be saved. But I'm here to help those who want to be saved. John 9, very briefly, I'll touch only on a certain portion of this. We know this story. It says he passed by. John 9:1 says, as Jesus passed by, the continuation, which means it's the same day, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples come to him and say, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answers, neither he nor his parents, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. Very illogical questions. How can a man sin before being born? Question is, who sinned? Did this man sin that he's born blind? Illogical. Can a baby sin before conception or sin in the womb? Second question. Maybe his parents sinned. We have a child with needs, and when she was growing up, initially when we had her, the first question we ourselves asked ourselves, why did we have a child with needs? What have we done? That was the first question. And God gave us this very passage and told us that the works of God may be declared through her. It's nothing to do with our sin. Now, very often you'll find people with disabilities looked down upon in our world, a lot more in our country. And who else is also looked down upon are the child's parents. And the question is, who sinned that this child was born this way? Okay, let's take this particular question. Maybe it's the parents. Some people believe it's the parents. I'll ask you a question. Any of you can say that your parents were completely sinless? Can any of you say, I'm not talking about you, can any of you say my parents were completely sinless, perfect? No, right? None of us can say that. If they were not sinless, which means they were sinful, how is it we are not disabled? How is it you are not disabled? According to many people today, a disabled child is born because the parents are sinful. Jesus says, no, not him, not his parents, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one can work. Watch this now. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. What's that phrase, that first few words? As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. The question now is, the Lord is not in the world now, so who is the light of the world? But he goes, first he says here, I must do the works of him who sent me, meaning he's giving us a glimpse of what he's going to be doing. We know that story, we won't go into it. We know he spits on the ground, takes some mud and puts it on the man's eyes and says, go and wash in the pool of Siloam, and he comes back seeing, right? But he says here, as long as I'm in the world, meaning there's something I'm going to do, he's telling his disciples. Now, in many a child's life, a disabled, a person born with disabilities, they may get healed, they may not get healed. They might speak, like in the case of my daughter, she still doesn't speak. The loss of disabilities she has. Now, God might heal, God may not heal. Now, does it mean we stop believing in God? No, we believe in God all the more. Because God is using our child to be a blessing to many, many people. The love she has, I can't have. The acceptance she has, the way she welcomes people, the joy she has, the forgiveness, the innocence, everything about her desire for God and His Word and prayer and church is unbeatable. We learn so much from her. He goes on to say, as long as I am in the world, which begs the question, now who's the light? Go back to Matthew 5:14 and 16 and we'll close there. When he was giving the Sermon on the Mount, he says, you are the light of the world, verse 14. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Who's he talking to? He's talking to his disciples first, and he says, you are the light of the world, which means you and I are today the light of this world. In this darkened world, we, the church, are supposed to be that light. The world should look at us and say, we want to be like these people. We want to live like these people. We want to be kind and loving and gentle and all the fruit of the Spirit and faithful and self-controlled and gracious and good and forgiving and thankful and holy. That's what we are supposed to be. He says, you're the light in a world that lacks all these things. But watch what he says after that. Immediately. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. A city on a hill, as you go anywhere, you know, hill stations especially, you'll find a city up there or a little town or a village. From any angle you can see that village. It can't be hidden. Okay? Basically saying, if you are the light, do not hide your light. Light was meant to be shone. A torch was meant to be turned on in the dark. These lights are meant to be turned on so we could see. But if, just imagine we covered all these lights, what's the point of the light? What's the point of the electricity and the wiring and the switches? So he's basically saying, don't hide your light. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket. Back in the days, they had only lamps, right? Today we have lights. They never put that lamp under a basket but on a candle stand. Today, if you look at where the lights are, they are not put down there. They're put up so we could benefit from it, right? Lighting is so important in today's world. He says light was not meant to be covered, it was meant to be shone so it can expel darkness. So it gives light to all in the house. Then he goes on to say, let your light, whenever he's talking about light, he's talking about your life. Let this life that I'm talking about, this life that reflects the character and nature of God, let that life be so evident in your life, the church, he's talking to us, that the world will see us and glorify not us, but our Father in heaven. We are not here to, boast about the things we do and put it up on social media and say, I did this good deed to this person and did that to somebody else, boasting of our generosity and our good deeds. He's not talking about that. When he says good deeds, he's talking about your life, your good works. Ephesians 2, 8 to 10, when Paul explains, he uses the word works there twice. We are not saved by good works, but he goes on to say in verse 10, but we are saved for good works. Means our good works don't save us, but we are called now to live a completely different life because we were saved by grace through faith in Jesus. Right? So even though we are looking at Jesus, the light of the world, what we need to remember is right now, Jesus is here by His Spirit in each and all of us. And therefore, for this world, which is dark and getting darker, you and I need to shine that light. You and I need to be that light. Because when people see us, they are either going to be attracted to Christ or repelled from Him. Move towards Him or move away from Him, depending on what they are seeing in me, in you, in all of us. Very often we are so focused on, like we looked at last week also, on everything else but our lives. The things we possess, the positions we have, the friends we have, how popular we are, how knowledgeable we are. We are missing the whole point of our purpose here on earth. And it says, be the light. Be the light. Sometimes we are cursing the darkness. We talk about all the things that are going wrong. Just be that light. Somebody said, instead of cursing the darkness, light a candle. Today we say, turn on a switch. Let's be that light, because that's how people are going to know that we believe in Jesus, who was the light of the world, and now we are the light of the world. And let's give God the glory through all the people. Thank you.